I'm really glad that I was able to see past my knee-jerk fear of being monitored in my own home. And there's never been a single day that I regretted my decision to say yes.
I have never seen a corporate simp this bad in real life. To put it simply, I'm absolutely disgusted. And you will be too. What you see on the screen right now is a LinkedIn post from a company called Crossover. And you can see Kmart's special PewDiePie here. Throughout the entire video, this man defends his company monitoring him throughout the day.
Some of my friends think I'm crazy because I'm willing to work for a company that takes a photo of me every 10 minutes, and they wouldn't be. For me, there's no question that the pros outweigh the cons.
The thing with this video is that he tries to be open and neutral and play both sides of the argument, but he does a terrible job at that.
Most employees are good people who work hard every day, whether their office is 10 feet from their boss or 10 feet from their brand new PlayStation 5, which just got delivered after all those delays.
Not only that, but he says things that are completely hypocritical and negate the reason why he needs to be tracked to begin with.
Ultimately, I want to be judged on the quality of my output, not the quantity of my input.
Andrew, I've never seen a company simp as big as you, bud. I've made skits about corporate simps that I thought were hilarious and not real, but I've been proven wrong.
I just got done. I got a raise, 4 stars. Oh man, that one-on-one was great.
That man probably just got one of the biggest raises anyone's ever seen at this company.
You're supposed to lick the boot, not put the whole thing in your mouth. If you think I'm blowing it out of proportion, the reasoning Crossover uses for why it should be okay to monitor their employees is that if you have nothing to hide, you have nothing to fear. This is Crossover's website, straight from their blog by Hazel Butler. What's the big deal with remote productivity monitoring? Down here in the second paragraph, but whether we like it or not, it's not realistic for remote workers to expect zero accountability. These same people are quite content to work in full view of others in a bricks and mortar workplace for the same reason they feel no fear at airport security. They have nothing to hide. If we scroll down, the downsides to employee monitoring, but they don't talk about the downsides, they talk about how to counter. They say, clearly communicate the rationale for the monitoring, and that honest workers have nothing to fear from it. Now, is that not some of the most dystopian stuff you've ever heard? Normally, I'd say, here's the YouTube video, check it out if you want, but this time, I'm just gonna go ahead and say, grab your shovels, because they're about to get buried.
Today, we're going to talk about the biggest remote work news story of 2023 so far.
So he tries to prop up his argument on this court decision that only applies in Canada. Get ready for the most condescending tone of your entire life.
If you're a remote worker and you haven't heard of Carly Bessie, you owe it to yourself to watch this episode because she's at the center of a landmark court decision that sets a precedent for remote workers everywhere. If you ever get caught in a dispute with your employer about what you were doing on company time, it's highly likely that this case is going to affect what happens to you.
No, it's not. Canada's court decisions do not apply universally across the globe. But this man basically tries to scare everyone up front in the video by talking about a case that says you could get sued.
So here's what you need to know. Carly had a remote job at an accounting firm in British Columbia, Canada. When they let her go after 5 months, she sued them for wrongful termination. But her former employer told the tribunal Bessie had logged more than 50 hours that did not appear to have been spent on work-related tasks, citing evidence from TimeCamp, which is a surveillance app that tracked her activities while she was on the clock. There are some disputed details around whether or not that time was mislabeled on purpose or by accident.
Here's the actual court decision, and let me read you a quote from Miss Carly Bessie. Line 25 here. Clearly, I've plugged time to files that I didn't touch, and that wasn't right or appropriate in any way or fashion, and I recognize that, so for that, I'm really sorry. This example of time theft isn't because they're a remote worker. It's because they're just a garbage worker. So why are the details confusing again? It's all right here, Andrew. They hired a crappy worker that fraudulently filled in their timesheet and then admitted to it. What does this have to do with remote work, and why should this be cost to monitor me at home and for you to take pictures of me?
But the important part is, she lost.
And the important thing is, she lost, as he says with absolute glee and excitement and joy. Let me give you the TLDR of how this actually works. Here in the United States, we have salary workers and we have hourly workers. If you're working hourly and you're claiming that you've worked hours that you have not worked, that is fraud, and most likely you'll be popped for time theft. He doesn't even make a single point about how salary and hourly are two different things, and time theft for salary is really, really, really difficult to prove because the premise of salary is that you're paid based on work done, not the amount of hours that you're putting in throughout the day. Now in this case, it turns out Miss Bessie was actually salary and she did get popped for time theft, and that's because she admitted to time theft. From the Department of Labor here, legally speaking, if you're salary and you perform any work, regardless of the number of days or hours worked, you must receive your complete and full salary. Do you see why time theft is difficult under salary now? Because as long as you do any work, you get the full paycheck. Time theft in this case essentially happened because she admitted to it. She said that she did work and didn't do it. And what makes Miss Bessie look even more silly in this scenario is that when her company found out about it and fired her, she tried to countersue for wrongful termination, even though she just fraudulently said she worked when she didn't. There's a difference between marking down hours and saying that you worked versus not working for an hour or two. And for a lot of people that are salary, stepping away from their computer to go do whatever is not time theft. Stop trying to make this argument, Andrew. So it sounds like we have a case of a bad employee that happens to be working remote. And now you're going to make the case that remote is the issue for this.
Yawn. 4 seconds.
What are you doing?
And she was ordered to repay the time back to her employer.
So first off, the thing you just put on the screen is completely incorrect. You show $2,000. The actual amount that she had to pay back to her employer was $2,756. You also don't clarify whether that $2,000 was all stolen time or not. Well, it turns out she only owes $1,506 for stolen time, and the remaining amount that added up to $2,756 was because she made a paycheck advance, and they fired her, so she owes that money for that advance. At least get your facts straight, Andrew.
This ruling got a ton of media coverage because it appears to be the first ruling of its kind. And the term that's been coined for it is time theft.
The term time theft is not new, and it didn't get coined because of this landmark case.
19 minutes and 48 seconds. What were we doing for 19 minutes and 48 seconds?
None of your business.
Look at this chart showing search trends for time theft over the last 5 years. That spike at the end? That's all because of Carly Bessie. But it was only a matter of time. The Guardian published data last year indicating that 60% of companies with remote workers had implemented some kind of quote-unquote bossware.
He's trying to set up his argument by saying, look, a majority of companies already track people, okay? So you're in the minority to begin with if you aren't being tracked.
And 9 out of 10 of those had terminated someone since doing so.
See, again, he's setting up his argument. If you're not working every second of every day, you might get sued, you might get fired, this might happen, blah, blah, blah.
And people get really worked up about this topic, and I will probably get some hate mail from both sides after this episode.
Stop promoting this garbage, you company simp.
Time theft and bossware may well be the most important conversation affecting the future of work right now.
No, it isn't, but okay, let's talk about it.
In this episode, we're going to attempt to strip out all of that emotion and focus on the facts.
But the facts you use are used in a way where it still doesn't make any sense.
And then I'm gonna get personal. Some of my friends think I'm crazy because I'm willing to work for a company that takes a photo of me every 10 minutes, and they wouldn't be.
Indeed, your friends are correct because it's not about having a picture taken of you every 10 minutes. It's about getting the work done.
I just know some of you are probably recoiling as you think about it.
Why didn't you? What is wrong with you? Again, take the boot a little bit out of your mouth. It's okay.
I'm not gonna lie to you. It is hard. But for me, there's no question that the pros outweigh the cons.
Pros outweigh the cons. And in a minute, he will tell us. But first, he has to continue to prop up his argument to make it seem like if you ever step away from your desk while you're working remotely and you're not being tracked, you might get sued for time theft and have to pay a bunch of money.
This is Out of Office, episode 25. Let's begin here with 2 objective truths. I have the right to do whatever the hell I want in my own home. I do not have the right to do whatever the hell I want when I'm on the clock and my boss is paying me.
See what I mean? He starts off with objective truths, but they don't even make any sense.
The entire time theft and bossware conversation lies somewhere between those 2 truths. And everyone can agree that the extremes are both bad, right? I mean, nobody thinks a company should be forced to pay somebody that plays PlayStation every afternoon instead of working.
Nobody ever said that. So you're pulling up arguments out of thin air just to try and prove your point. How did Crossover approve this video knowing that it's going to go on LinkedIn and that I'm probably going to see it and tear this logic to shreds?
And nobody thinks that employees should be watched when they're home alone and not on company time. That would be creepy. Nobody wants that. But now that the line between workplace and home has been blurred, both sides are painting the other as though they are defending one of those terrible extremes.
Sure, pretend like you're reasonable and adjusted, and it doesn't have to be all bad.
But here are some more objective truths.
Please tell me some more objective truths that are very subjective.
Most employees are good people who work hard every day, whether their office is 10 feet from their boss or 10 feet from their brand new PlayStation 5, which just got delivered after all those delays. But some people suck. They just can't resist that temptation. And in an office, their boss would know.
So some people suck. Therefore, we all need to be monitored, and we all must prove ourselves, because some people suck. Or you could just hire people that you trust.
So that's why when people say this, their boss hears this.
Again, he's just making his own arguments up out of thin air. If you say, trust me, boss, your boss is automatically going to think, you might be slacking off. Or your boss might actually trust you to get the work done, and then they don't really care what you do as long as your output is there, because they can just look at your output to see that the work is getting done.
And when bosses say,
Kind of sheepishly looks around and then down towards his feet like he's a little kid in trouble or something. I don't know, this segment is just really weird.
what workers hear is this.
It's actually a bit simpler than that, Andrew. It's not I don't respect your privacy, it's I don't respect you. Can't even use a translator right, bud.
And this reaches a stalemate that cannot be resolved with objective facts. There will never be a
Say objective one more time, Andrew, like you know what it means. And please use it wrong again.
consensus about something as important and subjective as how much trust is the right amount.
Whatever amount your boss decides, whatever amount you can convince your boss of. Either the work is getting done, the expectations are being met, or not, and then you fire them. You don't just resort to monitoring them and taking pictures of them every 10 minutes.
Too much trust is time theft.
That's right, too much trust is time theft, and you're gonna screw off all day and just play video games and steal money from your company. That's automatically what happens. People are just gonna be bad, which again is not true.
Too little trust is bossware.
Too little trust is them making you come into the office. Honestly.
Embrace the banter, gossip, and your manager's bad jokes that come with it.
Because there's so much nuance around the type of work, the type of people.
They might give different answers, but the consensus is usually you don't trust us. Look at the output, see if the work's getting done. If it's not, talk to us.
Every person who wants to work remotely and every company who wants to hire them is gonna have to figure out where they're gonna stand on this issue.
Yeah, you let me do the work, and then I'll be like, hey, look, I got it done, and you'll be like, cool, and we'll move on with our lives.
How much trust is it reasonable for them to expect? And where are they gonna personally draw the line between privacy and surveillance? I can't tell you where your line should be because there's no objective answer to that.
Yes, there is, and that is you don't need to take pictures of your employees every 10 minutes to see that they're getting work done.
And it goes without saying, nobody should be subjected to monitoring that they haven't consented to. Companies must be transparent about that so people can make up their own minds. And nobody in their right mind would choose to be monitored if they had a choice, right? But everybody has a price.
Everybody has a price. Fuck off, Andrew. Just because you're a company simp doesn't mean everybody has a price.
And what would make it worth it for you? For me, there are 3 incentives that would make it worth my while.
And his 3 incentives are, again, the most laughable reasons you've ever heard of, and he just, again, makes up stats. So watch.
And that's if the job paid at least 20% more than the other jobs I had available to me.
That's your choice, but I feel like there are other avenues to get 20% more money and not have to settle for being monitored. So your bar is way down here, bud.
If it was a better role than anything else out there, and
You don't even really specify what better opportunity is. You're just like 20% more, better opportunity, big and generic.
if it offered me complete flexibility to choose my own hours and location of work.
If you can't walk away from your computer without worrying about your company suing you like they did the Bessie person, then what's the point? That's not real flexibility. That's just a terrible employer.
Just moved from New York to New Zealand, and in this market, any other job would have meant a pay drop.
Is that true? Can you show me the statistics, the data? Can you show me some job offers that you got compared to the job offer that you had? Nah, you can't do that.
But I'll admit I was nervous. There were 3 deal breakers that would have led me to run for the hills. And firstly, I'm willing to prove that I stayed focused all day by allowing occasional selfies and screenshots, but
Let's pause. Every 10 minutes is not occasional selfies and screenshots. That's just not the right use of the word occasional. You don't have to prove yourself with pictures of you sitting at a chair at your desk. Expectations being met? Why does a selfie matter, Andrew?
only while I'm getting paid. Never, ever on personal time, and only on stills, not a full video feed. Secondly, I wanted to see the photos and screenshots that were captured and delete them if they caught anything I didn't want my boss to see.
Then what's the point of even allowing them in the first place? You just want to pretend to be honest in case something happens. You'd be like, oh, well, I deleted that because my kid ran in the room, but I'm still willing to bend over for you. It's fine. Give me the boot. Like, I'll send you as many as I want as long as I can delete some little oopsies here and there, right? Like, what is this argument, Andrew?
And lastly, Having just come from a workplace where I would get dinged for being 4 minutes late, even if I had stayed at my desk until 10 p.m. the night before. I was not willing to be micromanaged based on my time cards.
He's just willing to be micromanaged based on it taking a photo of him every 10 minutes and monitoring everything else he's doing. If you work for an employer that penalized you for being 4 minutes late to the job, even though you stayed really late and, tried to prove yourself, as I guess is what you're saying, it sounds like you went from one really shitty employer to another one. I don't know how else to say it. How much corporate Kool-Aid have you drank?
As long as I worked hard, stayed on task, and prioritized my workflow as efficiently as I always have in every other job, that had to be enough.
Okay, then what's with the monitoring?
Ultimately, I want to be judged on the quality of my output, not the quantity of my input.
Did your boss even see this and go, yeah, maybe you don't want to at least say that in there? You just disproved your entire video, Andrew.
Now, when I look back on those things after 2 years, all of those incentives were true, and none of the deal breakers ever happened. I'm really glad that I was able to see past my knee-jerk fear of being monitored in my own home.
Is that not out of like 1984 or something? I got over my fear of being monitored. You should let them monitor you too. Like, is this even real life?
And realize that it may be hard, but it's not that hard.
That's not a good argument, Andrew.
And there's never been a single day that I regretted my decision to say yes. As you decide where you fall on this issue personally, my advice would be to look past the knee-jerk reaction.
Good attempt at flipping the argument onto the workers.
The best things in life are rarely easy.
So you need to be monitored to achieve the best things in life?
Stop asking yourself if it's hard and start asking yourself if it's worth it.
This doesn't feel like a real commercial. This feels like Black Mirror or Omega Mart or something that's not real.
Don't sign up for anything you're not okay with, but don't rule yourself
He's got to add that little disclaimer.
out of a great opportunity either. Unless you're planning to play PlayStation all day or do whatever the heck Carly Bessie was doing.
If you come to the verdict page for this court decision, you can clearly see what she was doing. Line number 21 here. Miss Bessie says she could not explain the 50.76 unaccounted hours since she did not fully understand how to use TimeCamp. Clearly, I've plugged time into files that I didn't touch, and that wasn't right or appropriate in any way or fashion, and I recognize that, and so for that, I'm really sorry. If you read this document, it's pretty clear she wasn't playing PlayStation 5 all day, but you want to conflate the two as being the same thing, which just isn't true.
In which case, I wish you the best of luck in finding either a clueless boss or a decent lawyer.
So you see the implications he's trying to make here. You don't got those fingers on that keyboard, then you might need a lawyer. Or your boss is dumb and you're taking advantage of him. Go ahead and make assumptions about everyone that works at home. Everyone that steps away from their computer is automatically playing PlayStation 5 and taking advantage of their employer. Yep, for sure. He doesn't even mention wage theft. Not once. Not once does he talk about how companies can steal time from workers. It's only how the workers are the bad ones. And the big reason he doesn't talk about it is because wage theft outpaces all other theft in America, which means companies steal from their workers way more than workers commit time theft at their job. Unfortunately, the truth is that wage theft has been identified as the largest type of theft in the United States. It is responsible for roughly 3 times as much as economic loss as other types of theft combined. Employers can steal from workers by misclassifying them as independent contractors. Employers rob workers by taking tips that were intended for their employees. When employers deny workers legally mandated meals and rest breaks, some employers cheat workers out of their rightfully earned income by shaving their hours or by requiring them to work off the clock. Like, hey, spend a few minutes and help me lock up the place. You should be paid for that time, and if you're not, that's wage theft. Just so smug and condescending. He looks down. That's all we have time for. Like he's proven his point and he can drop the mic or something.
Let me know in those comments what incentives would make you willing to accept a job that required productivity monitoring software. Is your bar higher or lower than mine is? There's no wrong answer, but feel free to call me out if you hated mine.
It's such a garbage opinion. He knows he's going to get hate for it. To wrap things up, I want to jump back over to the section of their website where they talk about having nothing to hide. If you have nothing to hide, if you're not doing anything wrong, why won't you let us watch you? Does it work the other way around? Can we monitor the CEO? Can we monitor the company bank account? See, my problem with people that say things like this is that they expect to be able to know everything about you, but if you were to ask a similar question, they would say, it's none of your business. In fact, here's a clip from a movie called Enemy of the State starring Will Smith, and I think it shows a great example of how to deal with people that think they're entitled to your privacy.
Tell us about Rachel Banks.
She was my girlfriend the second year of law school. We keep in touch. We toss one another some work every once in a while. That's it.
Did you have an affair with her 4 years ago?
You ever beat off in the shower, Brian? You ever have any homosexual thoughts?
Bobby, that is
none of my fucking business. You're damn right it's not.
Now, there's a quote from Edward Snowden, and think of him what you will, but this quote is relevant.
Arguing that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is like arguing that you don't care about free speech because you have nothing to say.
It's not actually about security versus privacy, it's more about liberty versus control. Because they put the employee on the back foot by saying, well, you must be doing something wrong if you won't let us do this. Why do you think I'm doing something wrong if you're not monitoring me? See how this goes back and forth? Anyways, I'll post the link to this video on LinkedIn so you can go check it out for yourself and look at all the comments and do whatever it is you want to do, right? Don't harass people and so on and so forth. If you enjoyed it, click that like button, click that sub button, leave a comment. Let me know what you think about all this nonsense. I hope everyone's doing well. I'll see you in the next one.
What are you doing? Oh, you had said that you don't do anything personal during work time, so I'm just making sure.
There is no way that was...
1 second.